Radio DePaul is Chicago's College Connection.
Welcome back to Dylan's Discourse here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. I'm your host, Dylan Cohn, and today I am joined by a very special guest. Today I am joined by Alexa Gray.
Hi.
They are my voice teacher and also probably one of the most fascinating people I've met in recent history. Yes, so Alexa, why don't you tell the people a bit about yourself, what you do, who you are.
Okay,
Give them
sure.
a scoop.
Yeah. I'm a performance artist, musician, teacher. Teacher. Yeah, I make a lot of different work. A lot of playing between like genre bending. My background is like in classical music. But I'm really into like pop aesthetic or sort of pop culture references. So it's kind of just like my work is just a mix of all the things. And a lot of, I think, searching for like my own identity, I guess. Yeah.
Through your music.
Through my work, yeah.
That's really cool. You say you have formal training. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah. I went to undergrad. I studied voice and composition. After that, I moved to Chicago, went to Northwestern for grad school. Mostly in studying opera and art song. Took piano for a long time too.
How would you say your formal vocal training compare to the way you personally teach?
Yeah, I think I take pieces and like lessons that I've learned from studio time with all my teachers, but really try to craft it to like the individual. I think a lot of times my sort of learning was always in preparation for a show or a performance. And I think a lot of my teaching now is not necessarily for that. Sometimes I'm working with a lot of people that are just interested in like hobbyists or just trying to have an understanding of themselves or something deeper appreciation for music. And so sort of like calm down, like not everybody's trying to sing at the Met. It's okay. Like just sort of offer a space and sort of let them lead to where they're trying to go, I guess.
You were telling me recently about how you would have a certain opinion about pieces that you would be discussing in class, and it would feel like almost like people are very, very defensive when it comes to their taste in music, especially at such a high level. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I got into undergrad, I was like, oh, I'm learning how to sing very differently. I was like a total snob for a good 2 or 3 years, I think, in undergrad. Of just thinking like, if it's not classical, then like, what is it? This, gross time in my life. Sorry, friends. And then it just sort of, I think it was because we were so boxed in, and that's like the nature of the beast of that world, is like, let me put you in this little box because this is the only way we can sort of like get you to where I think you want to go, but not really. So, and I think just sort of like we just need to let our ears be bigger. Like, there's many. I think the art. I don't want to say this. I feel like there's different levels of art, but art is art. It just sometimes it doesn't land for certain people of certain aesthetics or something, but I feel like I just trying to learn not to like just throw shade all over it or like ugh. Just let it be what it is.
Right. What would you say was the turning point between very snobby, if it's not classical, what is it, to now you blend so many genres together? What was that kind of turning point for you?
I think it was like I just kept going down that hall of like classical music and like thinking about auditions, and I think it really hit of like people telling me this is the only way. And I was like, that just feels so narrow and like short-sighted of like, and always like, I mean, if you're working in the world of like auditions, it's like, why do we have to wait to do anything? Like there's so many like institutions that are gatekeepers, and like, you know, if you're just kind of sitting around, just kind of working on your craft, but you actually, you know, if there's not auditions for you, it's like, what are you doing?
Mm.
So I think it was just a lot more of like me making my own.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me, I feel like that's what keeps me balanced, is like, I love to create as much as I love to perform. But if I'm not creating and I'm just performing and it's not my work, then it starts to feel a little like limited or limiting, I guess.
Or like even stale. Just
Yeah.
because there is that sense of like, I created this and this is like my flesh and blood.
Right.
That definitely comes with creating your own
Yeah.
product.
And I think sometimes like, you know, when we're talking about gender and identity and like all the just social issues or anything that comes up in sort of old works, it's like, oh gosh, you're just retelling this old narrative over and over again. And, you know, nothing wrong with that. Just sometimes it's like, it's not really feeding me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I feel a lot about, I feel a lot. No. I feel that way towards a lot of pieces of classical theater, because I used to, not that I don't love classical theater anymore, but there are a lot of times where, like, recently My Fair Lady was brought back for a revival, and like they changed the ending so it's like a little more like pro woman, but like even then it's like, who's benefiting from hearing this story right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like the idea of taking a woman and like fixing her to be more proper, I feel that way towards a lot of what Broadway is doing. Like, who benefits from hearing this story? And I'm sure that is a valid point across many different platforms of art, but it is kind of interesting who hears that question and who doesn't.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel in classical music, where did you see yourself in that realm? Like, what made you gravitate towards that from the beginning?
Yeah. So I grew up playing piano, and I was learning like classical piano. And for me, that was just this sort of like release, like emotional release. It was like I was like 99.9% of the time, like just like very, very happy. It's like a child. And then when I started getting older, like the music that I liked in classical, just different shift. It was really romantic, and there was a lot of like angst that you could feel. And I realized like, oh, this is where I like to just release and like feel things.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me a long time to sort of get there with lyrics. So that was like happening like for me, like making songs on the piano and sort of like the classical sort of realm. And then when I started writing for myself in like the classical idiom, I just felt like the possibilities were kind of endless, and I could kind of start doing whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I could see these songs that I was creating in a recital hall, in a concert hall, but also like at some weird bar on a Monday night. Like,
Why not?
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really fascinating how it does have that duality to it, where it is like, still, if you listen, it does very much resonate as classical, but then you have like the production of it is very like I don't know. It's so fascinating how you connect your genres together.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Just like humble brag, like yeah.
And I think it really, I struggled at the beginning because I would just sit there and think like, oh, this just doesn't make any sense. People are not going to get this. And I just kind of had to get out of my own way. I was like, this is the story. This is how I want to present this. If it's from a place of like truth, then like, I think you succeed. So, yeah. And once you give yourself that one practice of like just kind of stepping out there and sort of doing it, because there's nothing else that I could kind of draw upon that was like just like what I was doing. So I was like, so it's not wrong.
Yeah, it's this. I like, especially as like an underrepresented person trying to put out art, it's very hard to, at least sometimes I feel this, like as a woman, like it's very hard to see what I want to do versus all the things that have been done before, and to have no examples of what I am interested in doing. Like, it's very hard to take those first few steps.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
What would you advise to anyone who feels the same way?
Yeah. It's I would say like, do the thing, be brave. I know that sounds so like cliche and like, okay. But it does get easier, and it's absolutely terrifying to create something that hasn't been created before. But like, also know that it's going to inspire someone else. Yeah, I feel like it just creates a ripple of like change. Yeah, I know it's hard. It's hard. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, I think that's forgotten to artists in general.
Sure. Yeah, and I think for the longest time, I wish I had like a time sort of frame of this, is like, I think it's really important to create a lot and try not to edit. Because sometimes like you just have to put something on the page, or you just have to write that line, and then you can look at it. But like putting your pen on paper like over and over again, but like no, it's like, get it out first, and then you can sort of look at it and sort of build something. Yeah. I like wholeheartedly agree with that. I have a teacher who like encourages you to what he calls first pancake, and just like get it out there. Like, the first pancake is never good. But he wants you to take your intuition. Yes.
Follow your intuition, and then, because in that is a kernel of truth. And from there you can find it, and you could edit it from there, but to get there you need that first pancake.
You absolutely do. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
That's cute. He doesn't want to talk about breakfast foods anyways when you're like,
Yeah, when you're a struggling artist.
Yeah.
First pancake,
yeah.
Please.
Yeah, and I think this also like, yeah, I think going with your intuition is like, what is the thing you're trying to make? What is the thing you're trying to say? What is the emotion you're trying to get across? Just starting from those places of like honesty, and then sort of editing and moving things around and shifting. But that starts to develop your practice, so that 2 months later you write something and it's like, oh, the first draft was like really good. You don't need to change it. And then everything becomes, well, how was that my first draft? And like, it creates your practice. Like, it's like an ebb and flow wherever you're at. Oh yeah, this just made me think of, I can say one of the biggest things or the gifts I feel like an artist can give themselves, and this is new discovery for me, is make the thing for where you're at emotionally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we aren't. It's like if we're doing a gig for something in a few weeks and it's like, somebody gives you the this is the theme for the evening, and this is what, this is what everybody's gonna be wearing, and this is the, vibe of the evening. And it's like, okay, you can get there. And also, like, 2 weeks from now, it's like, I don't feel like being like that happy, or like, I don't feel like, so it's like, make the thing for where you're at, because so many times you're not going to be able to do that.
And otherwise, it's like, you're not being true to neither yourself or your audience.
Right.
And like, an audience can tell if you're phoning
Exactly.
it in.
Yeah.
So you might as well give them what you are.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And I think, not saying that like you don't always get that opportunity, but when it comes like, oh my gosh, like crystal clear, like this is what I'm doing and this is where I'm at, like do that.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. You talk about like figuring out your practice. Right now on like my little artistic journey, which it's still so weird to refer to myself as an artist. Like that's where I'm at, where like even the word is uncomfortable.
Sure.
And so right now I'm in the process of kind of determining what my aesthetic is. And that's really hard because for a long time it's like, yeah, I like art. And now it's like, okay, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to do art. And so what I've found really helpful is I've been seeing a lot of things and I write down afterwards all the things I liked about it, all the things I didn't like about it, choices that I would want to make or not make if I were to create or do something like that. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting kind of forging that way so I can make my own authentic decisions.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard though, because sometimes I see something and it's like, this doesn't resonate to me at all. Am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? Versus, is this just not something I want to do?
Yeah.
Like this specific style of art. It's hard to kind of gauge that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing.
Yeah. No, I'm like, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think seeing a lot of art is just really good. Even when it may not like land with you or just like just weren't feeling it, I feel like you can always learn something about it if you really dive deep of like, okay, why did I have such a like reaction to that? Or like, yeah, I think it's really important. It's really informative.
Yeah. Yeah. All art is good art unless it's
bad art.
Unless it's not good art.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna take a quick song break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about creating spaces for queer or gender non-conforming performers, as well as performers of color, how you do it, how we need to be better at it, especially in today's political climate. How can we be better? We're gonna solve it right after. No, we're not gonna solve. There's a lot of things we need to fix, but we're gonna talk about it right after a little song. So here is "I Wish I Wasn't" by Heather Hadley.
Yes.
Welcome back to Dylan's Discourse here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. I'm your host, Dylan Cohn, and for those just tuning in, I am joined this week by my voice teacher and someone whom I greatly admire, Alexa Gray. You want to say
hello?
Hey. So right now, I really want to pick your brain about creating spaces for queer performers of color. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think what's tricky is I'm sort of outside of the audition world. That's just not my world. So trying to teach and coach people working for things like that, I try to just like really work with, what do you want? What do you want? And whenever I hear this, well, I'm auditioning for this, and are they going to want? And I'm like, oof, that's just, it becomes the performing for, 3 people.
Mm.
And I just think that like I get it. It's an audition, like, of course. But also like it just doesn't feel true. And I just feel like if, working with like queer, non-binary, trans individuals, they're already like trying to achieve this thing where so many doors are like not even going to be open.
Mm-hmm.
So start doing the work on like being true to yourself and being brave in the things that you want to do. And I think that's when doors will start opening.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like sort of tailoring an audition for somebody else.
Mm. So if someone is sitting on the other side of the audition table, you would encourage someone who is of an underrepresented group to not pander to the role necessarily, but more their take on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like things that I've seen in like auditions where I'm like, okay, I've seen the same sort of person do the same sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
for the same character, and like nothing feels new or different. It's like, no, that's been your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't dive back into that, because I think that sort of shows you where we can separate the like art and our craft versus like our own identity, but see how they overlap again. And it's like, oh, I'm shutting myself down again, or being smaller to fit into this little box.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
it's regression.
yeah, it's like, yeah, like blow that box up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh God, sorry about right now on this. Didn't mean to say that. Okay. Yep. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, we're all good in here, everyone.
We're fine.
Everybody
is
okay.
safe.
Yes.
But yeah, just, you don't want to be in that box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's important for your personal progression to reflect in your artistic progression as well. Because I do have some friends who identify in underrepresented groups, and they would often talk to me during their transition to say like, oh, I miss like my old voice, like I'm never going to be able to sing like I used to. And like, one, like that's a very difficult, I can't even like imagine, and like I don't even know how you would begin that journey.
Sure.
And so to think of other underrepresented people feeling like they have to conform to a certain thing to fit someone else's point of view, it's just like I'm like so empathetic. Well, not empathetic because I can't relate. That's the wrong word. Sympathetic. Yeah, I'm so sympathetic towards that. And I would be curious what your take on how future artists can help support those people better.
Yeah. I think it's really, I mean, I love affirmations. Like, I don't think succeeding until we're all succeeding is really success. Like, so like, if you're in a cast and you want this to be the best show, like, help your fellow castmates out. It's just this, it's sort of a wave of like, we're all trying to get to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
How can we help each other get there?
Yeah.
And arrive at the same time? Yeah, I think if it's just, even with language, sort of like language that doesn't feel limiting, I feel like that's a step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and things don't just have to look one way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we need a lot of people who are at the head of a lot of art that's happening. A lot of the gatekeepers you said earlier.
Yeah.
We need those people to quit.
Yeah. No, I'm like, a lot of y'all need to just like step down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, is that scary to lose power? Yeah. Yeah. Some of y'all need to like sit down, make some way for other people to come in. Yeah, especially in these like the classical world where it's like, you know, sometimes opera is really hard to sell. And I struggle with this because it's like, yeah, we have the greats, you know, that have been told and they're still popular. But then also like, just give me a new story. Give me new people on stage.
Yeah.
Give me deeper into like human condition. Like that's what I want to see.
Yeah, like how many times does anyone want to see the magic flute?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yawn.
Like I love it. I get it. And I don't want to see it. Oof, I don't even know if I want to see it again in my lifetime.
And that's fair.
fine.
That's
It's
totally
fine.
justified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel that there are elements of opera where people are focusing more on the human condition? Do you feel that wave of change is coming? Because I certainly see it in the theater world, like step by step it is getting there.
I do. I think opera, and this is also just like an opinion that's sort of, I removed myself from that world for a very long time. And I think I'm just sort of like opening my eyes and sort of wading back into that water. But I mean, opera is really expensive to mount.
Yeah.
It's just so expensive. And I think there's composers that, you know, are composing and they have these things. It's just like, how are we going to get them? How are they going to be produced? How are they going to be seen? And I think sometimes if it, you know, when it comes to bigger institutions, if it's like a money making that feels risky, it's not going to get done.
No. Yeah, I hear that. What is the solution, you think? Do you think the form of opera is dying?
I don't think so. And it's interesting because we just had that like strike with Lyric.
Yeah. And then the
orchestra.
They went back and people left. Like people from the audience left the performance. I was reading it.
Yeah,
an article.
Yeah.
It's so
it's really it's tricky.
Tumultuous.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Because you do have those benefactors and those donors that are of the older demographic and sort of. Yeah, I think I wish I had an answer for like these, like an institution like Lyric Opera of like how to do. That's totally, I don't know business. So like,
right.
That would be just my wishful
we're
yeah.
not going to fix it in this hour. I sure wish.
But oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say like maybe in 2 hours we could fix it.
But I think playing with the structure of opera, implementing or like more multimedia, sort of genre bending, I think is what's going to attract more people or a different group of people, maybe. I don't know. I feel like I've been more interested in experiences than concerts.
I agree. I'm the same.
Yeah. And not saying that like I don't enjoy concerts, but I've also seen a lot of concerts.
Yeah. You know what it's going to be.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, I think I sometimes just want to see something new, or like if you're going to tell me an old story or something, tell it to me in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating how, like, I think the idea of opera and like the practice of opera, I don't think that will ever die. But as far as getting the family together and going to the opera, like, I don't think that is as, when you ask like American people what they do, like to get their aspect of like culture, I think the answer has become opera, like less and less. And I think it will be interesting to kind of see where that form of art takes, because I do agree that it should be utilized in other aspects of art. Like I would love to see like Natasha Pierre in The Great Khan of 1812 is a pop opera.
Right.
And that's fascinating. Or just utilizing the structure of an opera in a different setting. I think that can really help springboard the art.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really powerful. I also think that sometimes, like, so taking that show, for instance, there's pieces of it that, like, that feel like, yes, this is in the realm of opera.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Die Hard, like, this is not opera. That, like, specifically the way things are sung stylistically, that becomes the big, like, is this a yes or is this a no for, like, that kind of crowd? So yeah, I think it's really tricky. That just becomes a big taste thing, and it's really like, are these singers singing like this or are they singing like this? And if it feels like there's an air of like more pop sort of, I think sometimes stuff gets shot down, or like it's not able to, like, they're like, we're not letting it in here.
The people of
the sort of like old
opera background.
older, so yeah, of thinking like
they wouldn't approve of that show because it is too pop to them. It reads as pop to them.
Yes.
Would you say that's?
I would think so. Yeah. And I really think it comes down to the singing. It's not really even the story. It comes down to the singing.
Yeah, and I get that because it is very pop influence and like very musical theater.
Sure.
Layer or lens.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. That, I don't know. I think all artists in general could benefit from being a little more open-minded about how they consider art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it just becomes this, what's the real reason that you don't want us in here? What's the real reason? Yeah, that to me is like, ooh, that's reading class. That's reading sort of like class dynamics of like keeping certain groups of people or certain ideas out of certain institutions because it doesn't align with old ideas.
Wow. Yeah. That is ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You're right. Dang. Yeah, so if any gatekeepers are listening, retire.
We're tired. We're exhausted.
We are exhausted. Oh my goodness. A mess. Okay. We're about a little over halfway through, so we're going to cut to another song and then some commercials. Hopefully the ones I pick will be a little more uplifting because I pre-recorded an episode the other day and the commercial I picked was like the saddest thing. It was like, I feel alone. And I was like, oh no, this is a minute.
No, oh gosh.
Right?
Lead with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all that being said, here is Focus by H.E.R. or Her. I don't
know.
Here's
I
Focus.
think it's Her.
Yeah, here's Focus. Welcome back to Dylan's Discourse here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. I'm your host, Dylan Cohen, and for those just tuning in, I am joined this week by my voice teacher, Alexa Gray. For those who don't know, I have such like a crazy fan base. But Alexa, I got in touch with them through the Voice Lab, which is this great organization for any voice to kind of become more developed and just they are a really, really great company and I do still support them. However, when Alexa was like, I'm leaving, I'm like, well, okay, I'm following you. I'm a Taurus. I'm very loyal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And that's that. So I kind of do want to ask you what it was like to be at the Voice Lab, what kind of pushed you to leave, and then the process of starting your own studio.
Yeah. I learned a lot at the Voice Lab.
Mm-hmm.
I got to work with really incredible people. The friendships that I made with some of the other instructors there will be everlasting forever. But it really came down to this sort of like, do you want to perform or do you want to teach? And not necessarily that they have to be one or the other, but my goal is always to be performing more. And I've had a habit of like cycles of like, I teach and then I let the teaching just sort of completely overtake sort of my own practice and my own work. And I realized I was doing it again. I was like, okay, got to shift something. Like, yeah, finding yourself in those cycles again and again, like, okay, you really going to make a change this time? So, yeah, sort of going off on my own, it's given me a lot more flexibility, just even creating my own practice, how I sort of wake up in the morning and sort of do my own thing. And like, yeah, I can really consider a practice not the sort of idea that I grew up with in undergrad of like practicing, but like outside of the practice room, but like something that's like a lifestyle sort of change. And yeah, so I have a lot of flexibility. I also feel that I got to be very upfront with all my students and clients, being like, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. I may not be available to you every single week, but I felt like people were very supportive of like, do you?
Mm-hmm.
And when we meet up, we meet up.
Yeah.
But I think that's also like, it helps me if I'm giving everyone my attention and my like 110% of like supporting and holding space. I was just running out of that for myself. And it's like, you can't give away what you don't have. Like,
exactly.
so I feel like that's what was happening with the Voice Lab, of just like, I was just totally overwhelmed with students. Yeah.
How many students did you have at the Voice Lab versus now?
The max is probably only had like 17 or 18 students in a week, which like sounds like a lot, also doesn't sound like a lot. But also when you're talking about like my own identity of like non-binary, trans identifying self, working with that demographic like day in and day out, it's a lot of trauma holding.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trauma holding. And I think, I did the best I could. But I just wasn't giving myself the like mental break and the mental health, like sort of like, yeah, that's what was sort of like suffering towards the end. And I was like, I can't be good for anybody if I'm not good for myself. Like,
yeah.
So I had a lot of students, sort of, they were graduating anyways with some of the speech stuff that we were working on. So it just kind of worked out that like my schedule got super small. And now it's just sort of like maybe 6 to 8 lessons a week. And it feels comfortable. Like my body feels different. I feel like I have a lot more sustaining energy to support everybody in their lessons. Yeah, it's just really worked out. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine like if I have a bad lesson, I'm just like a grumpy person. But like if someone of that background, of a different background, has a bad lesson, it's like I'm sure it can get very heavy, and like that's like a lot emotionally to hold.
Yeah, and I also think that like not to put this all on every student, also like it was just where I was too. And a lot of stuff that they would, divulge in lessons and stuff is like, oh wow, that's some of my own experience that I didn't recognize until now.
Wow.
So stuff was like coming up for me in my own sort of like gender journey, stuff that I couldn't really put a finger on or didn't have the language around like while I was in grad school, and then sort of like buried it, and then it's sort of coming up.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so it was just like a lot.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like exhausting every week. It was just, ebbs and flows. But I realized like I think it was just harder because I was not really following my dreams.
Yeah.
And that's why it was just weighing on me. It's like I'm teaching all this like live your truth and honesty, and it's like, are you living yours? Like,
Yeah. Well, congratulations for
Thank you.
doing what's best for you.
Thanks.
That's really admirable.
Thank you.
And I know a lot of people who don't do that. So
Sure, yeah.
it takes a lot to be able to step back and actually consider what you want and what you need.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is it? I've always wanted to ask I always ask my voice teachers at some point, like, am I like your worst student ever? And then they always laugh.
Giggle, uncomfortable. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
No, not even close.
I feel like I'm just like a hoot.
You're really funny.
Oh, thank you. My ego, her mind.
You're really funny. Yeah, I think sort of the work that we're focusing on right now is like, it's the absolute, like, it's the things that people have told us all of our lives. And all I'm here to do is sort of like help you wipe that off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm.
I feel like it's not really like, for a lot of people, it's not like building this voice or building this thing. It's really uncovering, like taking the things that have been laid on top of sort of our hearts or our voices or our just sort of, our being that people put onto us that aren't ours.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like getting into that place and just sort of like trying to let that stuff go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love your lessons because I can do my like, this is how I sort of talk to my friends. I'm like, I can give you that like, yes, like soft affirmations, like, what do you need? Yes. And then also I can be like, okay, do you want the like real? Do you want me to like just cut you with this? Like,
And I like need that.
Yeah. And I think that's, I love when I can do that. And like, I always want to ask for consent first of like, hey, can I just like get to the point?
Yeah.
And you're like, yes. And then I'm like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. I just think that sort of like, it moves things quicker.
It really does. I feel like I've spent, personally, in my vocal development, I've spent so many years like being told, being like lifted up, kind of almost in like the wrong direction.
Yes.
And like, I just want to hear it, like what it is, because there are a lot of times where I don't know what's true about my voice anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like really difficult to navigate that. And so I really do appreciate the honesty because it like lets me know like, where are you? Like, it's so easy to get like false affirmation.
Oh my gosh.
And not know what it means anymore.
Yeah. That's why when I've sort of asked you like, or I've sort of tried to reflect of, you're very talented, you have like a natural gift, and then you also work hard for it. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes when people sort of witness that, they can see you, oh, let's put you here, let's put you in this thing. It's like, okay, that's great. And then at a certain point, it's like, is this what I even want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're good at it doesn't mean you won't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have to do it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm taking so many steps to try to figure out and seeing all this art, because I don't know what I want to do right now. And it's like, oh my gosh, how many years have I been like just thrown into things and just not known? And so it's wow, what a fun little trip that was. Anyway, enough about me. We're kind of winding down to our last few minutes, so I kind of just want to end with what's in the works for Alexa Gray. Like, where can people find you? What's happening?
Yeah. So I got a website,
yes.
alexagray.com, and it's GRAE. Right now I'm working with a ballet company here in Chicago, Elements Contemporary Ballet. We're doing some like cute little videos. I just did one this morning. they're really, really love Elements because they're kind of in this like genre bendy sort of like, aesthetic. I'm doing a lot of sort of music video work coming up. I really enjoy film. And then I've got some other things where I think I'm going to start my first like electronic symphonic work.
Yes.
About the false belief in Black identity as monolithic. So, bam! Yeah.
Let them have
Let me
it.
just drop that before we run out of time. Yeah, but that's like a big work that's gonna take some big time. But yeah, that's what I'm up
Now
to
you
these
have
days.
the time.
Yeah, now I do. Yeah.
Yay. Well, here's to everyone's individual artistic journey, finding
Yes.
yourself and being true to that.
Yes.
Alexa, thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me.
It was a wonderful little chat.
It's cute.
Do you want to drop any ats for the folks at home? Any like social medias?
Yeah.
Where people can find you?
Instagram, at ALEXA_GRAE. So
Yeah.
Alexa_Gray.
Yeah. Everyone go check out Alexa. They have some really cool stuff.
Thank
and
you.
We'll continue to make really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much all for tuning in to this week's episode of Dylan's Discourse. To play us out, here is one of Alexa's songs. Here is Push.
Yes.